Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Way podcast. We're about an hour removed from a dreadful performance in the League Cup final where the Reds were deservedly beaten 2-1 by Newcastle United following a meek and jaded showing at Wembley. Arne Slot's team put in one of the worst cup final performances in the club's history to gift wrap the Geordies' long-awaited first major trophy in 70 years. In a season where we finally outlasted one sports washing operation, to fall to two others in the same week is mightily galling. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm joined by Dave Usher, the editor at liverpoolway.co.uk, Stu Montagu and John Gallagher to go over what went wrong here, making our best efforts not to lose our shit and throw out the baby with the bathwater. Dave, I'll start with you. There was a reluctance to record after the game directly, but I've kind of bullied you into it. A lot of anger and frustration at how that transpired today. One to forget, but also some cause for concern how we ended up in a place not to lay a glove on Newcastle until it was too late today.
Yeah, I didn't want to record because you know what you say now is probably not necessarily how you're going to feel tomorrow or the day after, but there'll be a lot of people who won't listen to it immediately because can't face it, and then they listen to it in a few days later and you're listening to us just fucking going off on one. It's not, you just know I mean, we got stick last week. People were saying they switched off because Paul was too negative after the Southampton game. It's like, well, fucking hell, if Paul was on tonight. Paul's actually just put his phone away. He won't even post in the chat now because he's so pissed off. You know, Brownie's not in a good place. Jules is just totally despondent. I didn't want to do it, but I knew the right thing to do was to do it, but I was like, no, fuck it. Players didn't show up. Why should we bother? But yeah, Chris, you kind of pushed me into it, and it was the right thing to do. So
I got a feeling that's why you told me about it, because you knew I wouldn't be happy with it.
Yeah. I know, I did just need a jolt in the right direction, but yeah, I don't want to do it. But I know I'm really going to have to hold back, because I know if I just say what I'm thinking right now, tomorrow I'm going to be like, what are you talking about, you tit? It's just, it's totally over the top and that. So I am going to try and rein myself in a bit. I just want to commend you for the intro there as well, like the whole sports washing thing. That was a quality line. Well done there. That was good. I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest, but yeah, it's a good point.
Too much other things to be pissed off about today.
Yeah,
as well,
Newcastle are way down the list, to be honest. I mean, there's plenty of things I could pick up on from like Newcastle today, but the bigger issue is just what the fuck was going on with us.
Yeah.
We've seen it a lot this season, like that first half. I don't feel like that first half was massively out of character for what we've seen this season. We've had quite a lot of those first halves, and we've generally turned it around in the second half. Today, I never felt we were going to do that. I was watching that first half, I'm like, we're fucked here. We're not going to turn this around. And so it proved. I think partly fatigue in some cases. Tactically as well, Newcastle obviously got certain things right and stopped us from doing things we wanted to do. I also think desire comes into it. They wanted it more, and I know that's an easy thing to say, and a lot of the time people say that and I think, no, fuck off, and these lads are not going to get out for, but they were, it's a fact. Newcastle were winning every second ball, so there's only, like, you can either put down to desire, like they just wanted it more. You can put it down to maybe they were fresher than us, or you can say tactically we weren't set up in the right place to have people there for second balls. These are the only real three explanations for why that can be. So take your pick as to which one it is. It's probably like a bit of all three. But it was just 59 minutes before we had like a meaningful shot, which was Curtis, who, in fairness to him, made an immediate difference when he came on, just from the fact he was running about and he was passing to a red shirt, which seemed to be more than anybody else was even capable of. It's not like he was brilliant when he came on, but it shows how bad things were before, that he comes on and within a couple of minutes, you're like, he's already done more than pretty much anybody else in our team in the couple of minutes he's been on. Same goes for Harvey, same goes for Chiesa. They've all made a contribution, but it's too little too late, and it was just an abysmal performance. The worst cup final performance since '96. Arguably, you can say it was worse, because Man United are a much better team. Well, back then they were the best team in the country. Newcastle certainly aren't. They're a good team, but, they're nothing special. And for us to play like that in a final after we've just been knocked out of the Champions League, and you're looking for this is the perfect game to come back from. You lose in Europe to PSG, and you've got to pick yourself up. So it's difficult. Your chins are on the floor, but it's like, okay, well, we've got a Wembley Cup final, so that's the perfect game to bounce back. You shouldn't have any problems with like motivation or anything like that. It's the ideal opportunity to get things back on track, and instead we've just turned in an absolute fucking stinker like that. It was like so bad. I mean, there's lots of things I could say, pointing fingers in different directions, but I'm reluctant to do that at the moment. I think I need to do that with a clear head, and not really the way I'm feeling right now. So. I'll just cede the floor to the rest of yous.
Come on, Stu, point some fingers.
Mo, where was Mo?
There's so many directions to point fingers in. It's just such a hard watch, really. I'll usually be the one when we lose and the boys are being a bit negative about a game. I can tend to be the one that's going, it's not that bad actually, on the balance of this and that, and they've just got a goal and we've created some decent chances, and so on the balance of play, it isn't that bad a performance. I'll usually be the one that's a little bit more positive, but that was just so far off it today. The midfield have been so good all year, and then they can't get a kick in that game. It just felt like we were nowhere near them. Toothless again. That's 3 games in a row, 3 big games at the crunch point of the season where we are toothless. And I feel tactically, and we didn't. There was no. Didn't have any confidence that we were imposing ourselves on them, or that we were dictating what was going to happen in the build and stuff like that. It's just they were front foot, and we didn't really have very many answers to that. I think that we're obviously going to have the chat about fatigue. I think Dave's right when he's saying that some people who were criticising Paul for being negative about Southampton think it was madness to not rotate more players in that Southampton game, knowing that you've got PSG coming up, and then you've got these coming up, and these are, you know what they are. They're a physical, grafting team that make it hard for you. I thought everything they did was, in a good way, was just under a foul, or sometimes just over a foul and you get away with it, but it was constant contact, constant aggression in your face, on the front foot, and we just didn't deal with that very well. Their set pieces were better, the technical execution was better than us, like even on basic stuff like balls into the box and stuff like that, they executed well and we didn't execute well. And I think there's going to be a lot of talk. I've already seen it online, and there's some chat from the lads as well. There is going to be a lot of talk about fatigue, and I think I draw a line where I do agree with the Southampton thing. I don't necessarily think it's the idea that you've played these guys for 40 games and so that's why their legs fall off here. I look back to the second half against PSG, and they've got an incredibly good midfield, and we were penning them into their own half, and the legs weren't falling off the midfield then. So the idea that we come out first half and we can't get a kick, I'm just not necessarily buying that's a fitness issue. If it was a second half and we would have fallen off a cliff, maybe I would have gone, oh yeah, that's where it tells. But looking over the course of the season, our midfield have played I think it's about 400 or 500 more minutes than their midfield. So that's like 4 or 5 games. You'd have to look into how intense the minutes were and stuff like that. I just don't think that's quite enough to explain how badly we lose most of the duels there today.
So what do you think it is then?
I just think genuinely, I think you've got to account for, number one, you can say, okay, we did have that game on Wednesday, and we did have that PSG game, and it was a
Tuesday. Sorry, Stu.
Sorry, Tuesday. Yeah, we had that game, so that takes it out of them a little bit. But surely you feel that in the second half, though. Surely that doesn't. Right from the off, we were like losing second balls, and even like the passing, we weren't completing like simple passes today. Things going out of play, and Maka was as bad as he's been for a while, like chewing it and losing it, and Don was a passenger, and Gravenberch didn't impose himself on the game in the way he does. I think there's also an element of the tactical setup of they come front foot. We haven't quite got an answer for that. I think that can put people, that can make you tentative. It can make you doubtful about your plan for the day, or how you're dealing with things in the half. So there's a bit of that as well, where if you've not set up properly, and if you haven't got the tactical solutions to get around it with however we've been set up, there's a bit of that as well. But I mean, whatever it is, and for a number of different reasons, clearly wasn't good enough. And like, even when we were hanging a lot of sort of high balls up as well to their defence, really lofted high balls, and Dan Burns just eating that up for breakfast. And I didn't understand a lot of the time how had we been setting up this week to play this game and beat them, because it just didn't. I feel like Newcastle have been setting up for 3 weeks for this. Like, even down to the last time they played us, Eddie Howe's talking about how he didn't want to show his hand and he didn't want to do certain things he was doing today and whatever, which is probably a bit after the fact, him trying to make out that he's like super clever manager. But there is still a thing of like, whatever it was, we've come in and we look so undercooked. We just look, and I never really felt like we were going to get back on top of it and wrest it back off them. It was a really depressing watch, because you were coming up against, like Dave says, you were coming up against players who clearly wanted it and were doing everything they could to pump themselves up, and I didn't feel like we had particularly good responses to that. Even with the first goal, the set piece, it's, what are we doing? I mean, yeah, you've got Maka on there blocking, and he totally loses him. I get that. You can argue you don't have him blocking. I was saying you should maybe get Kwanzaa to do that job, but still, it all just felt a bit passive, and it felt like they'd outthought us a bit and outfought us a bit today, and you will usually lose a football match if that happens.
John, I'm a little bit more willing to assign some blame for this game. I think this one's on the manager. I think he's probably quite naive in his team selection today. I think his reluctance to embrace fresh legs, his constant looking at members of his squad and focusing solely on their deficiencies and what they can't do instead of focusing on what they can do, hasn't been good for A, squad harmony, and B, having these players ready and up to speed when we actually do need them. I think he treats people like Harvey Elliott and Endo and Chiesa as a sort of like 2 a.m. sweep of the dance floor when he's out on the pull, like, last fucking resort type situation. So I think today's on him, and it's a learning process, and we're saying this in the context of us being miles clear at the top of the Premier League and outperforming all expectations. But I don't think it's too much of a overstatement to lay this one at the manager's door. Is that something that you go along with, or are you more in line with the idea that, general fatigue, having a big game in the week, coming up against a Newcastle team, as Stu said, had been clearly preparing for this for a long time, wanted it more, meant more, and I think today was clearly the day that they weren't gonna falter today. Like, we've seen this throughout times in our history where you come into a game and this is one that you're just not going to shit the bed in. You're going to come and you're going to give it your best. And we didn't match them today, and the end result is an easy win for them. I've kind of given you a lot to work with there, but just kind of go with how you saw it.
I wouldn't say it's solely on Slot today as such. It's been a culmination of a period, I think, where rotation or lack of rotation might just be catching up with some players. I know it's not his squad. I mean, he'll have he's obviously got his chosen 11, his preferred 11, if you like. But there's just some recent games, particularly Southampton at home, where worst team in the Premier League, and you're looking at it and thinking, okay, well, if there's a game to make changes with, a massive game against Paris Saint-Germain, who dominated us in the first leg, coming into the second leg and then a cup final 5 days later, that's the game, to like just give players a little bit of a breather. So in hindsight, I mean, it's a wonderful thing. It does look like that today it has just caught up. I don't think, you know, Dave said about lack of desire. I'm not too sure. I just think overall, you know, right from the off, you know, we just didn't look at it. You know, the whole thing was on verge in the huddle, giving it, you know, fucking whatever it was, you know, pumping them up and all that. But as soon as the whistle went, first 3 or 4 minutes, you just thought, well, you know, we're not quite out of here. You thought we'd grow into the game, but it just didn't happen, did it? And, you know, despite all the Newcastle's domination, if you like, you know, I thought, you know, we'll get to half-time, 0-0. You know, they didn't really have any, you know, clear-cut chances either, did they, as far as I can remember? But obviously conceding that goal right in half-time was a sickener. But in the bigger picture, you know, you could blame Slot today if you like, but maybe those players are slightly fresher with, you know, Stu mentions about like 5 games more than Newcastle, you know, the midfield. Well, there's been games where, you know, we could have maybe just rotated it slightly. Definitely the Southampton game, Harvey not starting. You know, Chiesa even for Mo. You know, Mo's playing every game. You know, they've got the whole Ramadan thing. I know that's been a topic of conversation between Stu and Paul in particular. But, yeah, it's just a culmination to me where it's caught up with us today, I think. The last 3 or 4 games, I know we played well against Paris Saint-Germain. I take Stu's point about the second half. You know, we had them penned in. You know, first 10 minutes, you'd expect that first 10 minutes of the PSG game was like, you know, Anfield's atmosphere, trying to turn lead, you know, around the home and stuff. You know, we started exactly how I thought we would that game, but second half, yeah, we had them penned in. But again, you know, fatigue comes into it. You know, extra time and that, and you know, changes have got to be made. But it's more over a period of time rather than just one game for me, that it has slightly caught up with us a bit. You know, I think now is the perfect time, if ever there was one, for an international break. Hopefully, in the bigger picture again, you know, we come back and, you know, we're fresh and ready to go for, you know, to get this title clinched finally. But yeah, there are certain things about. I'm not, you know, having a go at Slot. You know, he's done incredible first season. We're going to win the league and that, but there are just 1 or 2 little things where you'd like to think when he's got players who he wants, who he can trust, you know, moving forward, where, you know, we'll be more reticent to, you know, rotating the squad at certain points and giving players more minutes, or, you know, bringing players off or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, like, perhaps earlier on in the season, he had opportunities to maybe get these lads in more often and get them to a point where he did trust them, rather than it getting to a point where he needed to and hadn't built that level of trust with them in the team?
Again, it's hindsight, isn't it? You know, we'll never know. I mean, I'm not one for the, you know, Klopp used to talk about the red zone, didn't he? You know, that was the big thing. I mean, we never heard that mentioned anymore, do we? You know, I get like he's bedding in, you know, he's got to find a formula in the system and players that work in that system that suit him and that. But, you know, there has been a lack of minutes for a lot of players, and, you know, Klopp had this knack of keeping everyone involved, and, you know, it does look like there is a bit of sort of, I don't know, lack of cohesion with certain members of the squad because they're not getting minutes and that. You know, I know the FA Cup game was some time ago against Plymouth, but Harvey come on and stank the place out, for instance. I know he's well since then when he's come on and that, but, you know, that was totally lack of minutes. You know, how was he meant to come in, especially with a heavily rotated team?
Chiesa as
that
well,
game.
John.
Chiesa, yeah, that's it. How was he meant to come in and shine when, you know, the minutes are like so few and far between for him? I mean, Enzo's the, like, sort of player in the squad. You know, he's just no drama. You know, he comes in, does a job. I mean, he should have absolutely had more minutes. You know, Gravenberg's been running on fumes for the past few weeks. You've got a perfect player there. You know, never caused any issues. Top professional, and he's just not getting any minutes at all. And, you know, he was part of this League Cup run, I think, Enzo. He would have played the odd game, I think, I'm sure, you know, throughout the run and that. But it's just very deflating today. I very rarely get angry about football anymore, but I just feel like really dejected today that we've enabled Newcastle to win a trophy. I mean, don't want to be going back to Jurgen's days, but that just doesn't happen under Klopp. It just does not happen. Losing a final to Newcastle.
What do you think the key difference is?
Again, just think like, the harmony. I'm not saying there's a lack of harmony in the squad at all, but I just think keeping everyone involved and everything ticking over. And, Klopp was the master of rotation, wasn't he? And, just that, we had that winning mentality and, finals against Chelsea in particular, maybe not Real Madrid as such, but, just getting over the line. And today, it just, right from the start, it just fell flat. Dom touched the ball for the first 40 minutes. I genuinely can't remember him touching the ball. Everything just passed him by. I'm not saying, the other two were great, but you knew they were there at least. But with Dom, I was like, what the hell? But it was weirdly in extra time the other night. Dom got subbed, I think, but he made some long busting run late on, and I think he won possession back for us. And I think he got subbed just after that, I think. So, I don't know if it is, what the thinking was behind that.
We were awful when Dom went off the other night as well. That was the point when it just went totally off a cliff and we couldn't get out of our own half.
That's it. But, today, was that tiredness today with Dom? Because he didn't look tired the other night against PSG, as I say. In extra time, I say, he's charging back, winning the ball back for us. And today, I just don't know what to make of him today at all. He was just totally non-factor in the game.
It's not tiredness though, John. This is the thing. It's not tiredness in terms of they're out of breath, they can't run, they're like, oh, I've played too much. It's not that. It's how it affects the form. They're just not there. They're just not fresh. They're not sharp. They're a little bit leggy, and it's not noticeable sometimes where you wouldn't look at him and go, oh look, he's absolutely fucked, he's played too many games. It's not that. It's look at Gravenberch. Gravenberch's still getting about the pitch. He's still doing things here and there, but compare him now with how he was say a month ago. Look at him in the last month. He's not there. He's just not putting in those performances, and it's not he can still play 90 minutes. He can still cover the ground over 90 minutes. But the performance levels, it only has to drop by a couple of %, and it's really noticeable. And that's what fatigue is now. It's not out of breath and knackered. It's not that. It's just the performance level just drops a bit. And because of fatigue, there's just too many minutes in the legs and that.
Dave, there was a perfect example of that in the second half with Gravenberch in particular. The brain-body connection wasn't quite there anymore. The brain knew what it wanted to do when he dribbled out of play. And that it's a different kind of fatigue, isn't it? These lads are so fit they can run themselves into oblivion. But we all have days at work where we're mentally fatigued and we lose focus and things don't go as well as we want to. So I think it was just an example of that, really, rather than the fact that he can't run anymore.
Yeah.
And that was reflected across a bunch of players today. I don't want to dig him out too much, but sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, Gravenberch, it is just little things, just one of the Newcastle players had a shot later, I think it was just not long before they scored, and we didn't get out to the ball quick enough. I think Gravenberch was the nearest player to him, and it was more like a token gesture, but he didn't sprint to the ball to try and block the shot, and I think it went wide, if I remember rightly. But even the second goal, I think he sort of labouring a little bit for me. I don't know. He's not a full pelt to try and block the angle for the cross and stuff on that side. So maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it just looked to me like he did look particularly leggy, and little things like that stood out.
I think with the rotation stuff though, it's again I tend to lean more into this last period of 10 days and think that maybe Slot's miscalculated and thought I could just run them into the ground, get through these big games, hopefully we get across the line, and then there's a big rest for the international break, because we're talking about people not having a rest and looking leggy, but then I'm looking across the board and I'm looking at players like Dan Burn, Bruno Guimaraes, Isak, Joe Linton, Livramento, Tonali, all looked. They didn't look very leggy today, and they're not a million miles away from the same sort of minutes as some of our lads that we're saying are leggy.
Got to pull you on that one, because since they beat Arsenal in the last semi, a lot of those players may have been putting minutes on the pitch, but they have not been playing flat out. They haven't. I think they've won 3 and drawn 3 or something. They've not been playing at the intensity that they played at today. So,
but then over the season, how many games have we been coasting, and how many games have they been coasting?
Not many. We don't really coast.
They haven't
Most
got
of our games are fairly close. It's not like we're blowing teams away.
I'm just saying it's the same sort of area. I think if you want to say over the last few weeks they've rested and we haven't, I think that's fine. I think if you're looking over the course of like a 40-game season and saying this is down to things that we were doing in October or November, I'm just not sure about that. Just looking across the board at the type of minutes that some of the lads have done, I think once you get to like Gravenberch is well over and above, and I get that, and I think McAllister probably the same because he's doing those sort of minutes, sort of in midfield. Yeah, again, well, yeah, but
and
again,
maybe Diaz as well.
But you're only then in the same sort of range as Bruno. Do you know what I mean? You've played the same amount of minutes this season. I just feel it's too easy to go. This is because we've all been thinking about the rotation a bit through the season. So I think it's a little bit of, sometimes you could be careful that you're not doing a bit of scoreboard analysis and going, well, that thing I thought, now I'm going to say that's definitely the thing. I just don't necessarily think it's, obviously I'm not a sports scientist, I don't know, but I'd say over the course of it, I'd lean into the last 10 days as being the problem more than the idea that this is something that's been building up, because, you know, Dan Burn didn't look tired, Bruno Guimaraes didn't look tired, you know, just that element of, and what's Diego Jota's excuse? Like, because he's not played that many minutes and looks like he's never kicked the ball at times. It's just, I think there's an element as well where we've been, the ball retention over the last few games as well, probably the last 3, 4, whatever you want to call it, that's got the midfield going up and back a lot because we don't look after the ball properly up there. Diaz was driving me mad today, the amount of times he just flicked it around the corner or did something fucking stupid with it, and you were like, we're struggling a bit here, fella, can you just get hold of it and give everyone a breather and get in their half? Did you
see that one when he was in 10 yards of space, the ball got played up to him, and he just sort of turned and he just flicked his leg up and done like a stupid, like, just to nobody. I mean, just fucking bring that down on your chest and turn. It was like, and I think it was Jota, and Jota was like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, you could see Jota was pissed off at him because it was so, like, stupid and unnecessary. But no, that is a good point. But just one thing I think, like, needs to be said. He's not rotated that much. We know that. But it's got us 12 points clear at the top of the league. So there is that as well. If he's focused on, like, look, I'm just going to get this League One and everything else is secondary, that's totally fine. You know, we'd all have accepted that at the start of the season. And these complaints that we've got now, they are kind of in context that, that selection policy has got us 12 points clear at the top of the table. But it is catching up with us now. You know, that I don't think, like, that can be argued, regardless of whether you think it's what we were doing in October or what we've done in the last month or so. You know, and I don't think that you can, well, you can make an argument for it because we're 12 points clear at the top of the league. Whose dog's that? Is that Bert?
That's Bert. Yeah.
You can make an argument for it because we are top of the league. So, you know, there is that. That's always there, and we can't forget that. I just think when you look at it and you go, Endo's not started the league game, Elliott's not started the league game, Chiesa's not started the league game, at some point you got to go, what are we doing here? That is a bit weird. You know, that it doesn't really make sense. And it's also, you know, I think, like, you know what? I'm sure we'll get to this, but Chiesa deserves all the credit in the world for him coming on and having the attitude that he had today. Because I think if I was him, I'd have been thinking, fuck this, I can't wait to get back to Italy. I've been treated like a fucking dog all season. and being treated like a youth team player who's just on the bench sometimes, not on the bench other times. This is like a top player with a big reputation. It must be a bit humiliating for him, like the way this has turned out for him. You know, it's not what he signed up for. I'm sure he expected to be involved a hell of a lot more. He's worked hard.
To be there
he's
as well.
he loves it. You know, you can see when you see him in all like the training videos, you can see he's always smiling. He mixes well with everybody. He's not let it get to him, and I think like he's got to be commended for that, because there's a lot of players would have thought, "Fuck this, this is not working out. I'm just counting the days until I leave." And for him to come on with the attitude and desire that he had today, you know, I can't speak highly enough of him. And it also goes for Endo. Like, Endo's getting brought on in like the 91st minute sometimes, and he comes on and he still just like crashes into a tackle straight away. And, you know, it's easy to just think, fuck this, you know, you're treating me like a dickhead, and now you're sending me on expecting me to do something. So they've not really done that. And I think, you know, it's credit to them, but it's not really the way to be handling players, I don't think. You know, I think you've got to embrace them more, make them feel more part of things. And you go back to last year, look at the final that we won last year, and look at the players who played in that final.
Yep.
And
if you want to
tune out of all of them.
Look at the way that those two games went. Like, look at the contrast between those games. I'm sorry I interrupted you by making your point for you.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
But that is exactly it. You know, that there's the contrast. There's a load of players who played in that game who they're not even remotely close to it now, but Klopp had them feeling like they were the most important player in the world. You know, they've gone on and like they've played above themselves. Now we've got players who are not really playing above themselves. We've got players who are playing below themselves, and I do think that's part of it. You've got to make. I think John said earlier about like the harmony. The harmony in the squad's great in terms of, you know, everyone gets on with each other. They're all good lads and all that. But there is a difference between like the harmony, what you've got with like players who are on the pitch and players who know, no matter what I do here, I'm going to be back on the bench next week. There's a lot of players who know they can't play their way into the team no matter what, and that kind of is problematic.
Do you think this is like, yeah, obviously you're seeing the difference between a manager and a head coach there, aren't you, as well?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, obviously Klopp is a manager and it's through a sense, and obviously Slot's a head coach, and you know,
probably still learning as well, John. You know, he's not been doing it that long. So these are things he's learning as he's going. So I'm not being like too harsh on him over these things, but it's like the rotation thing. It's stuff that like he has got to figure out. I mean, he's doing a lot of other stuff like amazingly well with miles ahead the top of the league. So these are like rich people problems. What we're talking about here, because ultimately, you know, we are going to win the league. So these things, like, it seems a bit churlish to be going overboard on that, but we're talking like an hour or two after an abysmal cup final performance. So again, I would urge anyone who's listening to this a few days later and you're thinking, oh, this is too much, what are you moaning about? We've just fucking turned in an absolute colossal stinker of a performance in a cup final. So yeah, we're pissed off and we're wondering like why, what could have been done to avoid it and stuff. So that's where like the conversation is. In a couple of days, I'm sure everyone's going to be more philosophical about things, but, you know, these are things that everyone's thinking right now. They might not be thinking it in a few days, but people like it. I've watched that game, and I reckon like most fans are sat there pissed off and thinking, why didn't we do this? We should have done this. Maybe this is a result of not doing that. And all of these things are going through everyone's mind. And it's just, it's the pain of like I'll say humiliating. That was humiliating today. You know, we're the best team in the country, and we've played like that in a big cup final, and we've enabled Newcastle's first trophy in however long, 70 years or whatever. I did not want to be the ones to let them win a final, and for us to do it so meekly like that has just pissed me right off.
As well, on that point as well, Stu, I'll come to you on this, just to hear like the expressions of romance from the media, the commentators, just the general football world today on like what this win means to Newcastle fans and so forth and this and that. And there's a reason why they haven't won a trophy for 70 years is because they've been largely like a figure of fun in that time. But sports washing does wonderful things. You know, it can get you up there, it can get you competing. Sooner or later, if a certain amount of cash is going to be thrown at something, it's going to reap the rewards, you think. And you know, it's twice in a week we've had to suffer this now, like with the young, exuberant PSG team with, you know, French players and got rid of the Galacticos and superstars and this kind of stuff. And it's the same thing today, but at the bottom line is that, and it's going to sound like sour grapes, but it comes from like blood money. So like, fuck it, really. Like, I'm with Dave. I'm really pissed off that we've enabled that success and what it's going to translate to, you know?
Yeah, I think the aspect of that does my head in is when they're leaning into the romance of it all. I don't particularly think that Newcastle side. It's not like it's been put together with millions or whatever. I do feel like take away the ownership, and I do think Eddie Howe's done a good job there. Put a pretty solid team together. It's not like they've bought it in the same way that PSG's wages will be through the roof, and that they'll be sustaining that on a lot of external money. I wouldn't want to try and say that Newcastle have gone around the rules or whatever. I feel like that side has mostly been put together on a Premier League budget, and so fair enough to them. But yeah, the whole romantic story about this club. Newcastle's one of the biggest cities in the country, and they're the only club there, and they have a history of failure. Like that is a club that has massively underachieved to a level that very few clubs in global football could probably compete with. That you are the only club in Newcastle and you have won what you've won. Like, it's weird how we turn that into like a romantic story of, and I've got a lot less time for them since they embraced the new ownership and celebrated the new ownership when they came in, rather than, I'm pretty sure if that happened to us, that a lot of the prominent sort of fan media community would have a totally different reaction to Liverpool being bought in that way. I know a lot of fans would like it, but I think a lot of the more prominent fan media would be against that sort of thing. We wouldn't be celebrating it and waving flags around. But you're probably lucky, Chris. You probably didn't have to listen to Gary Neville either, who was joyfully, gleefully, all just right from minute one. Everything was just feeding into his narrative of just everything that went for us. It was like that he wasn't happy with. Everything that was a decision for them was totally justified. And I'm not even saying the ref did us or anything. It was just just all day he was constantly, gleefully hoping Liverpool were going to lose. And I could really do with watching football matches without that mank.
That's all he's got these days, though, isn't it, mate?
So
he's just a fucking sad case, like an absolute national running joke.
He was horrific today, though. It was probably
It
his
just
worst.
reminds
so
you
bad.
of fucking. You remember when Sky used to do that like alternate commentary feed where you could listen to the fans?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what they've kind of encouraged with like having Carragher and Gary Neville, like, commentate on Liverpool games and Man United games, or the opposite rivalry. It's just like it's bad enough watching because you get like a lot of the time you get this like pervading narrative. Like, I think everybody wanted Newcastle to win this game today, right? Well, that's what we're going against. Like, yeah, I guess so. But like, I had like Clive Tildesley and Rob Green, the former England goalie, on my feed, and even it was like that Everton game coverage on TNT that you were talking about.
Yeah,
like all it was about was Newcastle and whether they could do it. And I suppose that comes with the territory of being who we are, being Liverpool, being so successful, being way clear at the top of the league, being expected to compete for these prizes over and over again. We shouldn't probably expect media commentator sentiment or sympathy, but it does get fucking galling at times, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, I know. I'm just tired of the Neville Carragher shtick these days, to be honest with you. The bants aspect of it all. When he first, became a thing, the pundits, it was excellent, fair play to them, but it's just old that for me now. I mean, that watch-along thing they did, was it before Christmas? I think it was the night we played Newcastle at St James's, and Carragher sat there with the United shirt, and I'm saying, what the fucking hell is this? I'm just like, I've it's all died to death for me, all that. I just think got to freshen it up somewhere for me personally. But the whole thing with Neville and Carragher doing Liverpool United games or whatever, it's just, the bants, it's just, as I say, tiresome now, to be honest with you.
the difference when you get McCoist, who just enjoys the game and tends to just like sort of mostly celebrate like good football, rather than trying to insert his own narrative on what the day is, which is what Neville feels. It feels like
I
Neville's
thought
always
McCoist there did fall into the trap in that derby though recently.
It
was terrible.
Yeah.
But I'll blame
that point,
Ferdinand
I liked
for that. I thought he was with Ferdinand, and he's another banter merchant swat as well.
It's the worst.
But like I think he dragged McCoist down. And I remember saying on what game was it recently? Or what was it? What the Amazon game? Shearer and John Champion were fucking excellent. To be fair, you know they just called. It was a good game. Was it the first leg or the second leg? I can't remember. No, it was the second leg. Last week was on Amazon, and the pair of them was superb. You know, it was good commentary. I enjoyed listening to it for a change. But yeah, generally as a rule, yeah, I mean it's just very tiresome now for you know the reason stated. It's just got to like freshen it up for me and do something different. But that's just a quibble anyway compared to, you know, it come to something I was fucking happy seeing Ant Deck on the stage rather on the screen rather than our players. To be honest,
we saw more of
today.
Ant Deck than we did of Mo today.
Well,
They were on camera more than Mo was.
Yeah.
And I'm not. That's not even a shot at Mo. That's like
I'm on the right wing. Get me out of here.
we didn't get him the ball. When he did get it, he did nothing with it. But we barely got him the ball. It was ridiculous.
He did one with that lovely outside of the foot pass that he's brought into his game this season. Was that in the first half, was it?
I don't even remember it.
Yeah, there was one anyway, and nearly I think it was near the end of the first half. You know, it was the only time that he got at the ball in a bit of space. And you know, nearly created something from it, but other than that, we just didn't get the ball early to him enough. Just slow, ponderous.
We badly missed Trent on that front. Just Trent's ability to get Mo the ball in the right areas at the right time. That was, and that's not a knock on Kwanzaa, who had a decent game. It's
we did it better when
fault of
Curtis
his.
and Harvey came on, though.
Yeah, and then he did nothing with it. So you know that's a problem. I want to talk about their goal, like the first goal. We've got to get into that because our set pieces have been generally shit all season, but then today, defending set pieces were normally really good. That's so like the set piece coach is doing a good job in terms of setting us up defensively. Attacking wise, I think Virgil's got 1 goal this season. I think Canate's got 1. Maybe Virgil's got 2. I don't know. It's not enough. It's nowhere near enough considering how many corners we get. So that's a big problem. Slot said last week about how important set pieces are. You know, when it's two teams in a close game, generally speaking, a set piece can be like the difference, and that's how important they are. And lo and behold, we're in a cup final today. Yes, we were shite in the first half, but it's not like Queeve was getting peppered with shots or anything like that. There wasn't really anything in the first half. And then a set piece, and they'd almost scored from one before that when exact same corner. Dan Burn wins the header at the back of the box, and Gimenez flicks it, and thankfully it goes straight to Queeve, and he's got an easy save. But we didn't learn from that, and then they score. Now, I would love to know how that meeting went during the week when we were looking at like what Newcastle do on the set pieces and that. Someone sat there and gone, well, they've got this 6'7" fucking Sasquatch who's going to be attacking corners. Now, I've got an idea how we can stop it. Now, hear me out. What if we take the smallest player in our team and we put him on him? They'll be so surprised. This is so crazy, it might just work. Because how do you come to that decision where you're like, okay, Maka, you take care of Dan Burn? And I'm not going all old school here.
And then not
like
change it either, Dave.
Yeah, because we came off the second half and did the same thing. You know,
but he's not trying to beat him. He's not trying to beat him in the air. He's meant to get hold of him.
Okay,
he's meant
so
to just grab him and get hold of him. That's
you know what
this
is? You know what this is, Stu? You probably won't relate to this because it's an NFL thing. But this is like when like the fucking offensive coordinator is calling a play and he's saying to his little running back, right, you block that defensive end 1-on-1, and he just gets fucking steamrolled. They just run right over him and nail the quarterback. That's what this is. You can't be expecting Maka, even if like he manages to block him, he's still like 2 foot shorter than him. Dan Burn can still win a header even if he's being blocked. Because it's not like they were putting it on the edge of the 6-yard box for Dan Burn to run in and head it. They were putting it to the back corner of the box. You know, it's not like he was really close to goal when he was winning these headers. So even if Maka's holding them and blocking them, he's still fucking winning that header anyway. I would have changed it
up.
What we were doing.
like I said to you, that I said for me, you look at what they're doing with the corners. They're hanging everything up.
Yeah, you said put Kwanzaa on them, yeah.
Send Kwanzaa out there. Then you've still got Konate and Verge doing their zonal stuff in there. Just put Kwanzaa out there to fight with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't.
So someone's actually came up with a plan. Mark and Dan Burn on a corner.
Well, the Quanta thing makes perfect sense because that's a way you can leverage having an extra centre back on the field, right? Like you've been put into this disadvantaged situation where you lose Trent, one of the best players in world football, whatever. Like make fucking lemonade from lemons and turn it into an advantage, and as Stu says, put Quanta on him
because you lose something on the swings, but you gain on the roundabouts, or at least you should do, and we didn't.
When we've done the previews, is that a Dan Burn? Is that a normal Newcastle set piece, or is that something that they've seen how we defend?
Yeah,
from
they'll have
corners
changed
or whatever?
up, I think they'll have changed what they do usually.
Yeah. So, all right, the first time it happened, you go, okay, well, we'll tighten that up for the next time, but, we'll do something different, as you've mentioned, but to do the same thing, it's like...
John, what's probably happened there, because they didn't do that on the first corner they got, what's probably happened is they've looked and they've seen how we've defended that first corner, and then it was like, oh, okay, let's hit that long diagonal to the back of the box for Dan Burn, because they started using that then as a ploy. And there was a stat came up, wasn't there, like something like six set pieces into the box. Dan Burns had first contact on 4 of them, so they were obviously... They'd seen that as a weakness and like, okay, well, McAllister's picking up Dan Burn, that's a mismatch, let's exploit it. And we didn't do anything. Like, if they've changed what they do because of how we've been defending it, then that just tells me that they're paying more attention to it than we are. They're proactive. They're going, okay, we've got a mismatch there, let's fire the corner out to the back of the box and let Dan Burn attack it. And what have we done? We came out after half-time doing exactly the same thing with McAllister on Dan Burn.
I think the set pieces were quite an apt metaphor for the game, really. They were switched on, they were inventive. Like, there was the first free kick they got, like, out wide, that they had us on toast with that, with the little routine that they set up. Like, a goal could have resulted from that. And then just after they scored, we got a free kick in a similar position, and we asked about, like a little run here, a little run there, and then Robbo just swings it to Nick Pope, and that's basically the end of the half then. Like, so it was... just situational awareness. And like Slot said a few weeks ago, he wants to be that manager where it's not a close game every week. He sees the need to get to the 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 rather than it being a 1-goal game heading into the last 10 minutes of games. As you said, Dave, that's the way you do it. You take advantage of your set pieces, your quality delivery, your big lads who are good in the air, like your inventiveness. And the set pieces kind of told the story of the game today in at least one respect.
And it feels like we never score set pieces anymore. Do you remember under Klopp, we were always near the top, weren't we, of the set piece, league, if you like, of goals scored from corners or whatever. I'm pretty sure we're near the bottom this season. Roughly the same players, isn't it?
It's marginal gains, John, because we weren't always really good on set pieces, and we're trying to catch Man City, and it's like, what can we do to, it's such a close run thing. We need to find an edge. What can we do? And that was an edge that we found, was we became really effective from corners, and we were usually like first or second on corners for goals scored. And I don't know why we're not like that now, but the facts are the facts. We're not. The record's not good. Virgil should be getting close to double figures a season. Konate should be chipping in with 4 or 5 maybe. There's no reason why we can't be doing what Arsenal are doing. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever. And I know their set-piece goals have dried up massively lately, but they won today with a set-piece. And overall, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that, because we've got players who are just as dominant in the air. We've got players who can put a good ball in. So whatever the reason is, that's been an area which has not been great. Now, the good news is we're miles ahead at the top of the league, even though our corners have been largely shit all season. So if you get that right, there's the marginal gains again. You're probably looking at maybe another 5, 6, 7, 8 points a season if you become effective on set pieces.
And we're not short of goals either, are we? So, we've scored 69 goals in 29 games. So we're doing all right on that front. But
it's the close games when the set pieces matter.
But it also gives us room for improvement, doesn't it? Provided most signs on again. God help us if he doesn't sign on, because today was another example of you nullify Mo Salah, you nullify Liverpool. And all it takes is an injury to him early in the season that keeps him out for a few months, and we're nowhere near the top of the league as far as I'm concerned. Like, there are so many close games that have been decided by impactful moments from him, and this season looks completely different, and all of a sudden Arne Slot's not getting anywhere near the credit he's currently getting right now. So they better sort that fucking contract out. And I know you'll hate that idea, Stu, but it needs to happen.
No, I do. I have to chime in though with the whole we're fucked without Mo Salah thing, just because like the breakdown of the goals, it just doesn't tie up that way. Like, I think I put something in the group, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before or something like that, but the idea that Mo's got 32 goals, so that's the right wing. The right winger scored 32 goals. The goals from the left and the centre are 44 goals from the left and the centre. So that's 22 either way. Mo takes pens, he's taking 11 pens. So take penalties out of it, you've got 22 pretty much across all the positions. It's just like, obviously Mo plays every single game, so that's where the volume is. I'm not trying to diminish the fact that he's incredible, and I'm not trying to diminish the fact that he's having an incredible season. You have to score your pens, and you have to, when you're on the pitch, you have to keep scoring and keep scoring the way he is. But just the idea that we are reliant on him just doesn't pan out on the numbers across the positions. Like I say,
moments though, Stu, for me. It's not just like by tallying
assists
up stats,
as well.
it's moments. Yeah.
Creativity that he's getting those goals, but also he's our most creative player as well.
Let's not do that again, eh?
Well, we did spend an entire day just like needling each other over the assists and that with Mo.
We are massively overperforming on our finishing. Just see, we're massively overperforming on our finishing.
I'm not going over this again.
So I'm just saying, the quality of chances that were created, he's doing well. He's doing well this year. It's not this like stratospheric creative season. Honestly, it isn't. And anyone who needs to pay their mortgage by working in like performance analysis I would imagine would agree with that.
Okay,
Disagree.
let's not go down that rabbit hole then. John, anything you think we can do better on the second goal, or is it just, Robbo's outmatched at the back post, it's a good cross and it's good movement from Isaac and a good finish?
Again, slow started second half, wasn't it? Just set the tone again for how the majority of the half went. Kwanzaa, got on that right hand side, and then I think I'd have to see it again from memory. It just looked like Gravenberg could have got over a little bit quicker, maybe. I'm not sure. The lads agree with me or not, but yeah, it was a well-worked goal from their perspective, but I still think there was one or two little things we could have done better. It was a hell of a finish as well. The movement from Isaac, just create that yard away for himself and get the first time shot away. It was a brilliant finish. So, from their perspective, excellent goal. From our perspective, I'd say maybe one or two little things. I mean, a full-back can get pinned on the back post from across, that's fine, especially if the other wingers, jumped up early. Just maybe one or two little things before that for me.
Do you know,
Dave?
Do you know my dad blamed for both of the Newcastle goals?
Alison?
No, you're close. Close. He blamed his boy for both of them. He said he should have saved both of them. But now I think the first one, maybe Alisson saves it, but 95% of goalkeepers are not saving that. The second one, he's got no chance whatsoever. Nobody's saving that second one. Unless, the only argument would be maybe Alisson stood in a different position to what Guive is, and he would have had an easier save, but that's totally hypothetical. There's no way of knowing that. But I'm not pointing the finger at Gallagher on either of the goals. I think the first one was right in the corner, powerful header right in the corner, and it may also have been in his mind the one that had happened just before that when the header's going in the same area and Gimenez gets a flick on it. So he's maybe just hesitating that second to see, is somebody going to flick this? No, I've got to try and save it. Shit, it's in the corner. So yeah, I'm not blaming him for either of them, I don't think he could have done anything about it. But yeah, I just thought I'd
And
mention that because my dad turned against his boy.
Oh my God! I mean, that's the big story today. Surely
He's not turned against him, but he was disappointed in him. He thought he should have saved him. But that's because of his unrealistic expectations that he thinks he's this fucking superhero. I think he's not. He's just a very good goalkeeper. But, you know, there's a reason that he doesn't play ahead of Alisson.
And of course, speaking of Queeve, we had that lucky escape just a couple of minutes before Newcastle got the second. As if that wasn't warning enough to buck our ideas up. You know, I think we can look. If that was us, I would think we were quite unfortunate to have that goal disallowed, because although he was in front of him, I don't think he was blocking his view of the header that came down. So I think we were fortunate to get away with that one, to be honest.
More often than not, that does get disallowed. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't think it really impacted his dive, but he's so right in front of him. I fully expected it to get disallowed, even though I wasn't really expecting us to get many decisions. That one is like, it would have been controversial if they'd have let that one go. It's less controversial to disallow it. But that was from a corner, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
again,
think so, yeah.
set pieces, we just struggled.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Queeve had to make he had to make like a double save. Well, I think that might have been a counter-attack later on.
Yeah, when Barnes put it back in for Isak, and Isak just sort of fluffed it right
That's
out.
right. Yeah, it wasn't a double save. It was yeah. So I mean, Nick Pope's had to make one save the whole game. Tells its own story, really.
Pretty decent save as well, that, to be fair, even though it's right at him.
I thought it was straightforward. I didn't think there was too close to him. Curtis should have been going. Yeah. He had plenty of room onto the side to go there, put it straight at him.
That was pretty much the only good move we put together all day, wasn't it?
Until the goal, yeah.
Until the goal.
Even the goal wasn't a move. It was Harvey wins a tackle and then just splits the defence, doesn't he? So you can't even really call it a move.
Coming back to Isak, he's scored again today. He's had a great season so far. There's been talk in midweek for weeks really that we might be interested in him. Stu, do you think that's something that we should be just seriously looking at? Like if it's possible to make a deal for him? Like if you look at Jota's performance today, the lack of faith the manager has in Darwin and how ineffectual he was when he came on the field today, the fact that he doesn't fancy Chiesa on either wing through the middle, the fact that Diaz has largely flattered to deceive when he's played in that number 9 role as well. Do you think we should be looking for somebody who's more of an out-and-out striker that can, do a little bit more damage and make stuff for himself? Like, is that a deal that you'd want to make?
I don't know if it's necessary that we need a number 9 that's going to be more of a number 9, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure that's what's going to make us a better team.
Or a better player in that position there.
Yeah, we wouldn't naturally think Bobby's he wouldn't be the sort of player that people are talking about when they're talking about number 9, but he dramatically improves you because he'll look after the ball better, and he's also, we're chatting today about the idea that he did all the basic stuff really well, looked after it, worked hard, and then also had that he chipped in with a goal, but also could do something a bit out of the ordinary around the edge of the area, whereas it's sometimes a bit meat and potatoes with our number 9s that we've got at the moment. So I think he'll be looking at a number 9, or he'll be looking for, whether it's a 9/9/10, whatever it is, someone down the centre. I don't think he'll have been convinced by either of the lads that we've got up top. I think, last few weeks Jota's really disappointed me. We all know he's ruthless and he can finish, but with his availability as well, you do wonder. I can't see us doing a full revamp and sending everyone on their bike. I think if a bid comes in for Diaz, they'll probably accept it. I think he's a little bit underrated by our fan base just because he's basically the best number 2 guy in the league at the moment, numbers wise. Those number 1, he's on number 2, if you know what I mean, for goals, and he's pretty much the best number 2 in the league. I understand that we can, we want to try and improve everywhere. I think sometimes, I've said before, I think sometimes you can underestimate the lads that you watch every single week. Go and watch Martinelli every week and then come back and tell me if you think that, you want to get rid of Diaz as the teams we're competing against. Go and watch, whoever City you've
Doku.
got out there. Yeah, go and watch Doku every week and then tell me if you think that Diaz is an improvement on that. And I get the idea we should be looking for the best we possibly can, but I think age-wise, if you get an offer for Diaz, you've probably got to take that now. Even if I think he's a little bit underrated, and I think his output's been a bit underrated this year.
His contract as well, though, Stu.
Yeah, 1 year left on his contract, whatever age he is, 28 is it? I think at this point now he's going to go. Nunes is going to go, you would think. So you probably are bringing a 9. Whether it's the sort of... Whether we are the sort of club that can go and spend 130 million on a player, I don't know if they will or not. They might do if it's special. I mean, they were going to do it for Caicedo, I suppose. So if they think it's the right player, maybe they do. But yeah, I think it isn't necessarily the goals that I think need to improve though, because as I said, I think the goals numbers are pretty good. I think 70 goals across your front line is pretty good. It's more just I don't know the quality, or we're a bit too scruffy. The games where we struggle, where we just can't hold on to it, or the PSG game did my head in, where we have 10 3v3s and nothing comes from it over at their place. Albeit they were good, but they've given us like a dozen 3v3 situations. Why do we keep just spaffing them up the wall? So I don't know what the answer is, but they will bring someone in, and I think it'll be interesting to see who they bring in, because that probably tell you quite a bit about what Slot wants and what he wants his team to look like, how he sees it transitioning from Klopp's squad to his squad. That'll probably, who he has in there as his 9. That'll probably tell us quite a bit about direction of travel. So it'd be interesting.
John, how do you see that? Because as far as I'm concerned, the only person who's guaranteed to be here at the start of next season is probably Cody Gakpo. Like Mo's contract, there's serious questions about the others in terms of quality, form, fitness, various variables that you could throw at it. But like, how would you like to see us approach maybe revamping or tweaking the forward line this summer?
Well, with Diaz, I mean, I sort of have a hot and cold thing with Diaz, where I'm like, he's a bit unlucky that he's Sadio's replacement, like in the same way Mark Walters was unlucky. He was like, people thought Mark Walters was going to be like John Barnes reincarnated, back in the early 90s. Diaz is a good player. He's, as Stu's touched on, he's someone that you wouldn't swap many left-sided players for in the league right now. But on the flip side of that, he's very streaky. And, sometimes he has those games where there's a lot of bluster, all farts and no shit, basically. So it's sort of, I don't know. I mean, I think it's obvious that Darwin will be on his way. I don't know enough about Slot for the type of profile number 9 that he likes, a Feyenoord. I know there was a lad called Gimenez who went to AC Milan in January, apparently. But, I mean, there are a lot of more questions than answers, and it's quite strange where we're going to piss the league, and there's 3 or 4 areas of the team that you're looking at and thinking, we need improvement there, or something different at least. I think we need like someone, like type of player who can knit things together, who, as Stu said, not like quite scruffy. If you think of the goals that we scored when Firmino was in his pomp, he'd be linking up things and things that just happen naturally, whereas there doesn't seem to be any sort of the combinations that we used to have in some aspects, like the way they used to be. So I think like the left side, Cody, he's first choice, isn't he, on that left-hand side. So, I mean, you've got to look at it and think, just let's say, for instance, Anthony Gordon, is he going to come in and he's not going to be happy, England's international, like, he's going to be expected to be starting, isn't he? But Cody's like, done enough this season to be, first choice. So, it's a difficult one because, obviously no one knows what's going to happen with Mo as well. There are a lot of questions, but I just don't know the type of profile of players that Slot likes, or I don't know what his sort of remit was when he was a Feyenoord for those type of players. So it's a difficult one, but yeah, I mean, the whole Anthony Gordon thing, that was gathering pace a while back, but whether that's something we do, I don't know, because he's got to look at it and think, well, will I be playing like week in, week out when Cody's like valuable player? He's getting 15, 20 goals probably this season, is he? That was Sadio numbers, wasn't it? When Sadio was here. So, it's honestly at this moment in time, it does feel like a freshen up is needed in that attacking area of the pitch. But whether it's going to be like 3 or 4 out, I can't see. I think it'll probably be 2 and 2, like maybe Diaz and Darwin. Did you say Jota's got a year left, was it? Jota got a year left?
I think he's got a bit longer, hasn't he?
Not sure.
Diaz got a year. Yeah.
Diaz has got a year left, so yeah. I mean, decent bids, like 50-odd million for Diaz. You'd take that. Darwin, I mean, you'd like to think, with his profile and his age, that he got a good fee for him off someone. So hopefully that money could be reinvested into, talking 130 million for Isak, possibly, if that.
Nothing. No.
No.
I don't think that we would do that, and I don't think we should do that. And if we were to just go out and spend 130 million on Isak, my logic would be, hang on a minute, you've just gone and done something that any fucking fan could have done. What are we paying all of you nerds for? Your job is to find the next Isak. You go and get Isak before he's 130 million quid. If that's who you want, go and find someone who's ready to be the next Isak. Not just to take the easy way out and go, oh yeah, well we'll just pay 130 million. No, that's not how we operate. And if
I'm not saying I disagree, Dave. Yeah.
It's their job to go and find someone in like half that price, less than half that price, and that's what we've done so well. Like the 40 million pounds. Now, okay, the prices may go up a bit, so you're looking at maybe 50 now, but not spending that much on Isak, I wouldn't be doing that at all. I would be going and finding someone who's ready to step up to be the next one. Plus, it is a valid point that we've got no idea. I wrote this in the diary this week. We don't know what type of forward he even wants. Does he want like a Bobby type, in which case the links to the Joe Pedro at Brighton, he's like that kind of forward who drops in. I don't really want him at all. I don't think he's that good, but if that's the type that you're looking at, well then it would be that. Or do you want someone, because Isak's not that type of striker, that's not who he is. So what are we looking for? What type of striker do we want? What's the profile? It's Slot's job to tell them the type of player he wants. What does he expect from a number 9? What do the strengths need to be? And then they go out and find someone, not just go, oh yeah, Isak's good, isn't he? 130 million, okay, we'll just buy him. I don't think that's the way to go.
If you buy 2 of them, I was going to say then, if you buy 2 of them at 50 million or 60 million, you're then halving your risk as well, because you need one of them to bang and then one of them to be decent. Do you know what I mean? If one of them turns out to be a 50, 60 million pound player, that's fine. And then if one of them kicks on and becomes an Isak, becomes your 100 million pound player, that's what you're paying your nerds for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you look at the
John,
summer. Sorry, Chris. The summer we signed Darwin was the summer Newcastle signed Isak, which I know it's not going to go down well with Dave, but it was roughly the same kind of price, wasn't it? They were both ready for the big move at the time, weren't they?
But that's what you've got to do now, John. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the play you've got to go and get now, rather than you wait and then you're like, okay, now we've got to pay 3 times the price, whatever.
The other thing with Isak or someone like that, a proven elite striker, is like, if Mo does stay, how does that affect the balance of a front three, in terms of, what would that do to Mo's numbers? I mean, it's all hypothetical, isn't it? But, with that, is Mo still going to plunder like 30?
Mo's not going to keep getting the same numbers. Well, he might. But then Isak's numbers would be taking a hit, because you're not going to get them both doing.
This is what I'm saying.
40 goals.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
like playing fantasy football when you go, oh well. So then, okay, well let's sign a left winger who can get like 35 goals as well, and then that way we've got 3 forwards all getting 35 goals a season. It's not how it works. Someone's going to take a hit if you do that. So it's more about. It's like what Stu said. It's about getting like the balance right for the team. what type of play do you need, rather than specifically who's going to go and score me 30 goals. Because if he might get you 30 goals, but then if Mo's still here, Mo's numbers go down. Because you're probably, the total amount of goals that we're getting, you're probably not getting much difference when you're replacing Darwin and Diaz with 2 more strikers. The overall output of like your front 6 or whatever is probably not going to be too much different. It's more about the cohesion of the team, and I just don't think that they'd spend that kind of money. Because if you do that, then you've got to be able to rotate and have competition for places. So you're saying about Anthony Gordon, would he want to come in knowing that Gakpo's first choice? Well, Gakpo shouldn't be first choice. It should be like, you've got 2 players, let them fight it out, and whoever's playing better gets the start. I want to get away from this, because we've basically got, like, say, 10 players who are more or less guaranteed to start every big game. The only question is who's starting at number 9. So that's all well and good, and occasionally Curtis might come in. So you've got 4 midfielders for 3 places, but basically the rest of the team is, who's playing. That's not good for the players who are not in there. You've not got that like competition for places when players know, well, no matter what I do, I'm not going to get in the starting lineup for next week because it's a big game. So I want competition. So we've kind of got it with Gakpo and Diaz. We've had that for most of the season. That's what I want across the forward positions, rather than like, if you go and spend 130 million on someone, you've got to justify that. And even if he's not necessarily firing on all cylinders, he's still going to be getting picked over someone who might have cost you 30 million, because you don't need the drama of like this massive signing who's not necessarily starting all the time. So
what evidence have you seen that Slot's going to operate like that though, Dave? Like, like he seems pretty set in his mind who he wants in those big games. So competition or no, like it could still be a point where Anthony Gordon would come in, say for instance, just using him as an example, and he wants Cody there, so Cody's going to play. Like, we've seen countless examples throughout the season where he's not necessarily gone with the hot hand, like Jota starting in midweek, for example. I don't necessarily think that he sees it that way. I don't necessarily think that he. So what's that going to do? Like, we can all say that that's what we want. If that's not how he sees it operating, then what's the fucking point?
It's hard to know, though, whether he trusts the fringe players, isn't it? If he brings his own players in, maybe then he's got a larger pool of people that he trusts for those big games, isn't it? This season, it's hard to know whether he fancies them, whether the issue is that he doesn't fancy them. And I don't really know how much he rotated in his last job.
Very little, apparently. It was one of the things that was mentioned when he came in.
Right.
Remember at the start of the season, and he picked like the same team for about 5 league games in a row. I think the only change was Konate. Quanta started the first game, got subbed at half time, and then it was like the same lineup. And we were saying then, even back then we were saying, no, you've got to rotate a bit, like you've got to keep players involved. But that's not how he operates. And then he started to do it a bit more when the cups came around, but generally it was like one or 2 changes maximum.
Maybe
for the games.
Maybe this is a bit of a learning,
about not trusting the.
I think there's an element where if you're here for your first season, you're probably just thinking, I'm just going to play the good lads. I'm going to run them into the ground. I'm going to get the league done. Maybe it wins me the cup as well. Maybe they just get over the line. But I think maybe for him there is an element of, I'm just sticking with the lads that are going to win every week.
Which has worked. It
has worked. And maybe he's got a little bit of experience now of going, right, but the wheels did feel like they fell off a bit at the end of March, so maybe I do need to rotate a little bit more. And he's clearly not a stupid man, and do you
think that's inexperience of being in this league, or like is that something we can give him some leeway for because of his newness?
It might be because of the toughness of the league. It might be. So that's a double-edged sword where, because it is so tough, and because every single, because Wolves have got 3 lads who start for Brazil or something, so every week they can beat you. So maybe he's thinking, well, I've got to play the best lads every week. So maybe it is a learning point when he goes, oh right, I mean, I did win the league doing that, but then everything did fall apart in March a bit. So maybe I do need more lads to fill out the spaces and play a few more minutes and rotate a little bit more. Because they clearly care a lot about sports science. That's one of the reasons they were brought in, was because of availability, and they care about the medical side of sports science. Maybe that's something they look at and go, how do we stop this from happening if it is legs falling off. Like I say, it might not be. If after this break now they go again, maybe it will just be we needed to do better in the 2 weeks around the cup final and the Champions League game. Maybe that's what they'll take away from it. Or, as you're saying, maybe they bring in 4 players, 5 players, and we start using 15, 16 instead of 12.
Yeah.
Dave, do you think
That's
we
what
end up
City have
learning
done.
more about... Sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing what Stu's saying about 15, 16. Like, City have had that, haven't they, where they've got 15, 16 top players, if you like, and then they'll put like 3 or 4 like players you've never heard of on you know.
Yeah, kids.
They've got that. And that's, you know,
Your James
ultimately...
McAtees and your Oscar Bobs.
Yeah.
Nice,
you know, but they'd have like players of similar quality to come in, wouldn't they? You know, the whole whys and the wherefores of that, but it's a case in point where, you know, Dave touched on before about Gordon and Gakpo, and, you know, it's a good point. You know, if you've got that core of like 15, 16, you know, in what was it now, 20-man squad, is it 9 subs, is it? How many subs is it now? Sorry.
Yeah, 9,
Yeah, so if you've got that core of 15, 16, and then you fill out the rest of it with, you know, some younger lads, if you like, then...
but when you get injuries, that's when it's a problem. Like, look, City got injuries, didn't they? And they just couldn't cope with it. Amongst other problems as well that they had. But, you know, you've got to get the balance. Like, generally the rule is like 2 players for every position, and then promising young players who come in when you've got injuries. So you still kind of need like 20, really, I would say.
Yeah. But then you look at the job that James McConnell did when he came into that cup final this time last year, and he's not even... You know, a thought coming into today, but that's kind of beside the point. Not beside the point, but also, you know, it's a contrast to make. Dave, do you think that we might, like, we've talked a bunch of times, almost as a kind of like disclaimer, really, about how Slot is going to win the league in his first season, barring some miraculous fall off or events outside of our control. But do you think we'll learn more about him this summer and next season than we've been able to glean from his first season? Because I remember, like, in Jurgen's first season or something, there were plenty of times where I was pissed off with him. Like the West Brom going to the Kop, raising the arms thing pissed me off. Him going on Monday Night Football and like telling everybody how we did everything pissed me off. Like, do you think we'll, and look at how that ended up. Do you think we'll end up learning more about Slot from this point onwards than we know about him so far?
Yeah, because I don't think we actually really know that much. Like, we're still learning how does he react to certain situations, and because most things have gone really well all season, we've not seen how he reacts to adversity. Like, today was, like, if you look at his reaction to the way the game was going and look at the substitutions that he made and like the way the team looked, it kind of just looked like just throwing a load of shit at a wall. If there was no... I didn't fit. It just felt like more and more desperate. Now, I totally get that, and I didn't have a massive problem with it, but I was looking at it and going, I know we're 2 down, so we've got to chase it, and you've got to take risks and stuff, but I don't know, like, we put Virgil up front, and then we were passing it round at the back. Like, just stuff, that's what I mean. All the plan just went out the window, which is understandable because we were playing terribly, we were getting beaten. You've got to just change it, you've got to do something. But these are things that you learn. Okay, how does he react in this situation? And then, well, what did he say afterwards? Now, I haven't seen any of that. I've not watched it. It'll probably be a couple of days before I'm prepared to do that. So we are learning. We were just saying then, we don't actually know what type of number 9 he even wants. You know, so that's something we'll find out in the summer. So he's working with somebody else's squad, and we don't know we've got a fairly good idea who he likes and who he doesn't fancy, but we'll find out for definite in the summer, when you'd like to think it'll be a case of they'll go and get him the players who he wants to do a specific job in his system and his style of play and all of that stuff. But we have still got to deal with the whole contract situation, which is like a dark cloud over everything at the moment. So how can you even think about next season? Because we've got no idea what it's going to look like. My attitude is I'm just going to enjoy the league title, because it could go either way from this point on. You know, there's no idea what's going to happen in the summer. maybe the players all sign contracts, and then we go and make some like really good signings to enhance what we've already got, and we kick on and we dominate. Because me and John were talking the other week, it's all set up for us to dominate. All the other traditional big clubs, there's only Arsenal who are in any kind of a decent shape to be competitive with us. It's all set up.
We don't know how quickly that can change, though.
Well, it could change, but it could change because we could just completely fuck things up by not renewing the contracts, not bringing in the right players, and we could fall off. It's so easily done. You make a few bad signings and you're losing good players. That's why Man City have dropped off, because the players who've got too old and who've moved on have not been replaced by players who were as good. So therefore, there's a big drop off. That's the way it works. So this summer is massive for us, and it could go either way. So I just want to enjoy the league title, and then we'll just see how the chips fall after that, because there's no way of knowing what's going to happen. We could go on and become even better, or this could be as good as it gets. We just don't know.
Stu, do you think Slot is perfectly cognizant of what went wrong today, the mistakes that were made on and off the field? What do you hope he takes from this?
I hope so. I haven't seen his post-match comments. I saw Brownie's just said it's made him feel worse rather than better, listening to the post-match comments. So I hope he hasn't been. I hope he understands how bad it was today. I tend to find that my initial reactions when I'm looking at a game aren't a million miles away from his when he comes out and says what he thinks of a game. And he's been pretty harsh, hasn't he, down through the season with games where we feel like we've not been at it. He's been pretty brutal. So unless he feels like it's gonna he's gonna get shit for it if he comes out and he's honest about how bad that was today, I would expect him to be pretty brutally honest again. But then that's tricky, I suppose. If it is that the lads are knackered and he wants to come out and start putting noses out of joint, that's probably not brilliant. Most managers tend to stand by their players when they lose a final or something. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I've generally agreed with his assessment when we've been poor through this year, so I will trust and hope that he's got the right sort of answers. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm totally won over by the way that we've played this year and the way we've won games and the style of football, but you can't argue with the end result. It's been incredibly efficient, and we've won the league. So, or we will. I would expect us to win the league. So yeah, I would trust that he'll come out with the right answers from today, and hopefully that involves a bit of looking in the mirror as well and realising what he needs to do better and where he's gone wrong in setting us up. Because that was just. It's okay losing, isn't it? Well, it's not okay losing, but you feel better when you've had a go and lost, and it just feels like we've not really had a go, not really turned up, not landed any punches. What was the fucking point, really? So, yeah, hopefully I'll trust him. I'll place my trust in him that his assessment's been pretty good this year on when we've been crap, so hopefully he knows why we were crap again today.
John, one of the things that surprised me today, disappointed me as well, was we all saw the Southampton game a week ago. He recognised how bad it was, and that's something that Dave brought up in how impressed he was with how he didn't like what he was seeing, and he made changes at halftime. No changes at halftime today, even though we'd had that odyssey in midweek in the Champions League. Is that something that surprised you? Would you have liked to have seen him make those same changes, 2 or 3, and just freshen things up a bit and get some more intensity in our play and that sort of thing? Or do you think he was right to sort of try and instill some intensity in our play in the second half, which obviously didn't manifest until very late on?
It's a cup final, so obviously you can have words at half time and stuff. I didn't have a problem with them not bringing us any or making any changes at half time, but again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Playing the worst team in the league, Southampton's a lot easier to do things like that rather than a cup final where things are in the balance. it was only 1-0, so you just like give them 10 minutes at the start generally, don't you, and then see how it progresses. But by that time it hadn't worked. We'd gone 2-0 down in that period, so but I wouldn't blame him for that per se, but obviously at that point it was too late, wasn't it? But how were we meant to know that? I mean, it started second half. I mean, we're all thinking surely it won't be as bad and as passive as that again in the second half, but it started off exactly the same way. That wasn't in the in anyone's remit in the dressing room, I wouldn't have thought. But so I didn't have any issues with them not making any changes. But when the changes come, like later on, I was like, what the hell is this? I think Dave used the saying earlier, it's like throwing shit on the wall. I mean, went to a back three and stuff, and it was totally alien to anything we've done all season. It looked a bit desperate then as the half went on. I didn't have a clue who's playing where. It just looked very disjointed. I know we had Newcastle penned in for a few minutes, but a lot of that was possibly down to them just sitting in a little bit as well. Wasn't down to us, like some, sort of game plan where we've, up the tempo or whatever. They were pretty comfortable, all things told, even in that little period as well. A couple of the subs did well, obviously Chiesa, Curtis, Harvey, but, overall, it just looked a bit of a mess, frankly, that, what we were trying to do, I don't know. With Slot on the whole, I mean, I think I said in the Christmas pod, until he's been here a couple of years and got his own players in, obviously we're going to win the league this year, and it's a fantastic achievement in his first season, don't get me wrong, but a lot of those players are serial winners, playing off, muscle memory. We've won games a lot this season, but it's been in like moments, it's sort of like enjoyable, if you like, overall, as Jürgen and stuff, but it's, these players are like experienced players who know how to get over the line in games and stuff, and I'm not diminishing anything Slot's done overall. He's made tactical tweaks at half time when we've been struggling. We had that last season, didn't we? How often were we behind last season at half time? Was it 18 times or something daft like that, was it, where we conceded the first goal? But I think overall, I just think Arsenal, the challenges this season fell off a cliff, haven't they? Arsenal have had all kinds of injuries and, forward positions. That's probably diminished their points total by however amount of points, I don't know. City have fallen off a cliff, obviously. If we win the league, it's, we deserve to win the league, of course we do. I'm absolutely not disputing that. But I think this summer, as you have said, that's like more of a next season. I think we'll know a lot more about Slot. If we did drop off and the players leave, like Verge and Mo and stuff, and we dropped off a bit next season, we're fighting for top four again. I know it's all ifs and buts and hypotheticals, but how will it look then? I just don't know. But that's again not taking away anything he's achieved this season. I mean, to win the league, but it is different, and when you're at the game, there are big lulls in games sometimes, and
there are.
It is a little bit dull at times, but I think when he's got his own players in, that'll be more like we'll have more of an idea. He's going on about wanting to be 3-0 up or whatever after so long or whatever in the game, and putting the game to bed early, but we've not seen that much evidence of that this season with the players.
Because we're shite in the first half.
It's a strange one.
Shite in the first half.
So, I mean, obviously that's not by Slot's design or whatever.
We were last season as well, to be fair. It's not a new thing.
Mm.
You said about conceding the first goal all the time. We don't necessarily concede the first goal as much as we did, but yeah, we're not a good first half team.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, it's an odd position to be in, being top of the league by such a distance and seemingly being like complainy pantsers about it. Like,
yeah,
it's a strange transition that I don't think we've ever experienced before. You might have, but the other three lads on the pod with you today maybe haven't. Like, a manager coming in from a position of strength rather than a position of having to like rebuild. For me, it was like Souness to Evans, Evans to GH to Rafa, Rafa to Hodgson, Hodgson to fucking Rodgers, and then Rodgers to Klopp, and all of those were like, these managers had reached the end of the line. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't believe I forgot Kenny for the second time there, who actually did okay in the time that he had and stabilised things a little bit and whatever, but it's never been before a position where a manager's come in a position of strength where you're kind of missing certain elements from him. You know, you give him time, he gets his own players in. Like, what are you hoping that Slot learns from today? And, you know, we haven't been I don't think we've been overly reactionary on this pod. Like, I think it's dispelled your fears about it going overboard and stuff. But
no, my fears were that I would go overboard. I knew you three would be fine. And I knew that Paul and Brownie weren't on, so that dispelled some of the fears. I was more worried about what I'd say rather than what you three would say, to be fair.
What's the thing you're most disappointed in today? Like, what's your big takeaway from this game?
Oh, it's hard to say because I just thought everything was shit except for Chiesa and Harvey, and to a lesser extent Curtis. I just felt like I thought Virgil was fine, to be fair. I thought in the first half, and it wasn't good, I thought that Virgil and Robbo have been all right, but everybody else has just not been at it, and tactically it didn't look right. You know, the energy levels weren't right. Then you've got like the set piece issue where like they look like they were going to score from every set piece. So there's so much that's gone wrong today. And the thing is, this pod is a reaction to today's game, so we'll broaden it out, obviously, and we're talking about like bigger picture and stuff like that, but essentially the mood is dictated by what we've seen today. So it's not going to be all like sunshine and fucking sweetness, is it? Because yeah, we're well ahead in the league, but we've known that for weeks. It's not like we've just suddenly been given this good news. Hey, look, you're 12 points ahead in the league. We've known that for ages, so that becomes normal, and you're not taking it for granted as such, but it's not like you've suddenly got this like big lift in your emotion because you've just found that out. It's like, but no, we're deflated because of what we've seen today. In terms of like Slot and what he could learn from it, I don't know, because I don't actually. We've spoken about like rotation and keeping players fresh and stuff. That's one thing, but it's not specifically learning from today. It's more learning from like the season as a whole, and how players are now looking like they're very leggy and not playing at the level that they were a few months ago, especially the midfield players, to be fair. So in terms of what he can learn, I don't know. Whatever went wrong tactically, it's way above my pay grade. I don't know what he got wrong tactically, whether we didn't adjust to their press. Like maybe he thought they were going to press a certain way and they didn't, and that's why we couldn't play through them. I'd say that's probably likely because he talks about that so often, about how the other team presses and like, this is what you need to do to play through. We didn't do that today because we didn't play through them. We didn't even really attempt to. We were just knocking it long to nobody most of the time. And that's why we had no control of the game. There was one moment in the second half when they mentioned it in commentary, like they said, you know, this is what they've not been doing. It got played into McAllister, who had a man on him, and he popped it off to the left, and we actually got out and played out, and that was like the first time I could remember us really doing that. So maybe like that's something he's got to learn, like, you know, whatever tactical battles he lost today, you learn from that for next time. I don't know. Substitutions, it did seem a bit haphazard, but I kind of feel like it was so shit. You just had to do something, and you had to think outside the box. So if that means taking off Kanate and saying to Gravenberch, okay, play centre-back, and then when we've got the ball, go into midfield, which is what he did against Fulham, remember, when like we were down to 10 men. And that worked brilliantly that day. Didn't work brilliantly today, but again, Gravenberch's a different player now than he was back then. He's not got the same energy levels, the same zip about him. So I understand why he did some of these things, but I just felt like whatever he was going to do today in terms of substitutions and tactics, now you could just tell after the first half. It's like I don't see us turn this round. And you mentioned earlier about like making changes at half time, which is what he did last week. I wasn't really expecting him to make changes at half time today, and I didn't have a problem that he didn't. I always felt like he's going to give it 10 minutes and then look at it, because sometimes you've just got to like give the players a bit of a kick up the arse and say, right, now go out and fix it, rather than making the changes, which is what he's tried to do. It's not worked. We've conceded another goal, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to start with the changes. But by that point, you just felt like, yeah, no matter what we do here, this is one of them days. Nobody's really at it. It's just a poor performance. I would say the one thing that you should take from today is have a long look at yourself and think, why have I completely ostracised Chiesa and not let him on the pitch at all? Because him doing that, as the perception that fans have got of Chiesa, stems from the fact he never gets on the pitch, and we all think, oh, you know, must be something wrong there, you know, he mustn't be doing well in training, maybe his legs have gone or whatever. But the actual evidence when we've seen him on the pitch doesn't back that up, other than the Plymouth game when everybody was fucking woeful. Chiesa did not have a good game. He was one of the worst players, but he was also one of the few that was still showing for the ball at the end and still demanding it and still trying to make things happen. So as bad as he was that day, he deserved credit for the fact that he kept going and he didn't just go, oh my God, I'm fucking shite today, just get me off. He was still trying to do things. So he gets some credit for that, even though he was way below what we wanted. Everybody was way below that day. And I just feel like you see him come on today and immediately, within a couple of minutes, you're like, well, he looks lively, he's trying stuff, he's buzzing around the pitch, he's wanting to get on the ball, and then he scores.
He's actually in the box as well.
He's involved, and you're like, why is he never getting on the pitch at all? This is a fucking mystery. This is a player who, like, a few years ago, he was probably like a top 5 forward in the whole of Europe. That's how highly rated he was. Then, yeah, he has a bad knee injury. Players come back from knee injuries all the time now, and they come back like at the same level. Might take a while to do it. So there's no physical reason why Chiesa can't be like a really good player. It's not like he's old. He's 27. So it's baffling that he's just been completely out in the cold all season. And then you see him come on, you do that, and it's like, well, what's your justification for never letting that lad on the pitch at all? It's baffling to me. So hopefully now we'll actually see a bit more of him. And, you know, Cody's come on today, and I'm not digging Cody out because there's a legitimate reason for it, but fuck me, he's nowhere near ready to be back in the team. He come on the other night, Wednesday, he couldn't fucking move. And like within like 30 seconds of him coming on today, I looked at him trying to move. I'm like, he cannot move. He can't run. He's like so fucking sluggish. He's clearly not fit after that injury. And yet he comes on, and that was like, that substitute appearance from him today is one of the all-time stinkers. I think he couldn't do anything. He was like just totally not at it. And I'm not digging him out. It's not his fault. He's just clearly not fit. He's not ready to be back in the team at this point.
And the knock-on effect that has on the morale of people like Chiesa as well.
Exactly,
like,
that's
he sees
the point.
His mate out there and just being fucking...
He's sitting there thinking, he can't
contest.
fucking move. Why am I sat on the bench when like a 50% Gakpo is just like fucking ambling around? He can't break into a sprint. It was... Again, it's like, how is he getting on the pitch ahead of Chiesa? And when Chiesa comes on, he's full of beans, and you can see that, and you're like, well, you should have been on fucking 20 minutes ago. So that's something that I hope he looks at today and goes, yeah, you know what, I've been harsh on Chiesa, he should have had more minutes. I'm going to give him more minutes. And the same for Harvey as well. Yeah. Makes a difference. Like, every time he comes on, he makes a difference. He gives us something. I'm not even saying like that he should be starting games all the time, because there's a reason he isn't. You know, we've got a balance in midfield, that's good. But at the moment, the midfield players, they just look a little bit leggy, which is totally understandable. I think we've got a 12-point gap. Don't just keep running out the same players week in, week out now. And I know we've got no cup competitions anymore, so we're playing once a week. So he may feel like he can do that. But no, you've got to use the squad just to keep everybody involved, keep the motivation levels high, and so they're not just thinking, what's the point in me even being here? And yeah, and I'll reiterate what I said earlier on. Chiesa deserves all the credit in the world for not throwing the towel in when he would have had complete justification for thinking, fuck this, I'm just waiting till the end of the season and then I'm gone. So credit to him for the model professional. And you can see it in all the videos that the club put out. He's always smiling. He's always like, he's with different players in the squad. Everyone seems to really like him. He seems like someone who'd just be great to have around, and he just deserves more minutes than he's been getting. And I think today just proved that, you know, because I've been thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, there must be a reason why he's not playing. I seen him come on today. I seen what he did. I'm like, no, there is no reason for him not playing. It makes no sense. Just give him some fucking playing time. And this was like so close to being the Fede moment that we were all talking about. Mm-hmm. And then the problem is, you'd have a fucking 3-minute VAR check for nothing when it was clear from the first replay he's onside. They're desperately looking to see, is there anything wrong with this goal? They even went back and they were looking at Harvey's tackle, which is a fucking clean as a whistle tackle, where he took the ball. And then that just kills any momentum that we had. And then we just couldn't get the ball like they had it in the corner flag, and it was all scrappy, and we just couldn't get that one more attack that we needed. But, you know, it's so close, because if we get another goal, Newcastle completely fucking collapse, and we would have won that. We would have gone on to win that game, and Fede would have had his moment.
Yeah, I mean, but that just stands to the point. Just get him on fucking earlier.
Yeah.
Get him on when you bring Gakpo on, or earlier than that, you know, like, for fuck's sake.
I mean,
Like,
I'll go
give him
against
a
the grain,
fucking
but
opportunity.
it's like, realistically, I mean, should he be getting on ahead of Darwin? It's like the hierarchy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It depends if he sees him as if he can play centre forward. If he sees that as a viable option, then, well, you should be having a look at him. But he was bought to play wide, wasn't he?
Forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's played across the front three through his career. I think he's played all over the place. I always think that when you're not working the goalkeeper, the one thing he does is he just gets shot volume. Every time he gets, like, you throw him on for 15 minutes, he gets 3 shots at the goalie. You know, it's just, he's always super busy. So it always surprises me when, well, it doesn't surprise me because obviously our main man is our right winger, so that's why his minutes are obviously diminished, because our right winger very rarely comes off, so he'd have to find minutes on the left or at the centre. But yeah, I think he's I like him a lot. I think he's busy, and I think he could have a proper career here. We've got him on a 4-year deal. Like, I wouldn't particularly be in any mad rush to give him minutes for the rest of the season, because in a purely cynical way, it's not the worst thing in the world to give the lads that we're going to sell some minutes. If we want to get rid of Núñez, it isn't the worst thing in the world if you get some goals in the run-in, you know.
Yeah, but when he's as dispirited as what he is at the moment, his value's not going to go up. I mean,
maybe
he's coming off the bench and he just looks broken. And again, this is, people will say this is me defending him, but if you've got someone and he scores a goal, you've got to fucking start him to keep his confidence. You try to build something, and like he won the game for us last weekend. And what's happened? He's been on the bench the next 2 matches, which is okay if the person who's keeping you out the team is like, you know, you're like, well, how can I leave him out? Jota's done fuck all for months, and Darwin still can't get in the starting 11, and then he's being brought on, and it's like, okay, well, do something. And he's not in position to do it because his head's just fucking gone now. You can see he's just like...
He had the whole thing about his work rate, that whole comment.
I'm not even going there with that stuff. I don't find like that as being helpful either, but that's, you know, that's by the by. But yeah, I just feel like he's dispirited now. He's had loads of setbacks when he's been here, and he's always like bounced back. He's always like tried to carry on. I just think he's reached the point now where he thinks, what's the point? Because what is the point, seriously? If like he wins the game against Southampton, and then we've got 2 massive games, and a woefully out of form Jota is getting picked ahead of him for both games, and it's like, okay, that's not working, Darwin. Go on, do something. And do something in a game where like the team's just not fucking getting the ball forward to the strikers anyway. And it's not good. It's pointless. And I'm at the point now where like he's in his head, he's probably thinking, I need to just go. No matter what I do, I'm wasting my time. He doesn't fancy me. He's not going to put me in the team. Even if I score the winner and I'm back on the bench, I'm just biding my time and I'm off in the summer. And he's going to end up somewhere. He's been linked this week with Atletico Madrid, and you're like, that would be perfect for him, really. That would be like...
You'll be straight on the internet buying Atletico Madrid Darwin Núñez shirts, wouldn't you?
No, but that would be like an ideal move for him. But I just think, you know... I want to see Chiesa getting some minutes now. Let's see what we've got there. You're saying Stu's not the worst thing in the world if he's not playing. Well, I think he needs to play so we can see what we've got. And because if he looks the part, I'm not saying start him every game, but give him time on the pitch and let's see what we've got. And if he is good enough, well then that's one less thing you'd have to worry about when it comes to next season. Now, maybe like they were thinking about bringing Ben Doak back. I don't know. Personally, I think loan him out again and just... because he got injured and he's missed like half the season now. I think he's out for the season. So another loan move would be good for him. He's still got time on his side. You've still got Chiesa under contract. But let's have a look at Chiesa and like let's see if he can get back to what he was.
But chances are they'll probably get these minutes once the title's clinched, and you know, there's no like pressure on the games or whatever.
The worry then, though, John, is do you not think like some of those games will just be like a stroll in the sun, and they're not even going to be like?
Well, this one saying,
games?
yeah, you know, league's won, everyone's like celebrating, and you know, we'll go through the motions, probably do enough to win whatever games they are at that point. But yeah, they're generally, you know, they're the kinds of games that you think that those changes will be made, and those players like Endo, Harvey, and that will get minutes at the end of the season then, where once everything's clinched, because there's been no sort of you know, outlier to say that he's gonna make those changes has been discussed already in you know, in this podcast.
We should be looking at points totals. We can get 97 if we win every game. And if you want to be seen as like, you know, one of the greatest title winning sides, you should have that in your head. Think, well, you know, if we get 97, that's right up there with like with Klopp's best teams. Okay, we got 99, didn't we? But it's only a 2-point difference. If we could get to 97, which, to be honest, I don't think there's any chance that we will, based on like the way we seem to just be flagging now.
We're up against Prime City then, though, as well. I mean, I know in the history books it'll look amazing, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but you only play City twice, John, so...
I know, but they were like, you know, Arsenal and City, are they? Especially this Arsenal this
that's
season.
why points total, though, that's what I'm saying.
I want to get 91, because that'll be Arsenal's best ever season.
The Invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll like dispel that narrative that we've only won the league because they've fallen off.
But that, see, John, you're saying about like... And you're right, like those teams were up against City, and they've come up short twice, despite getting like high 90s in points. But you can't control who you're up against, but you can control your points tally. You know, so if we get to 97, then this team can say we can hold our own with anyone. We're as good as the Klopp teams because we got 97 points. Doesn't matter that Man City weren't like up there with us, because that's irrelevant in terms of what you do. You only play City twice a season, so what they're doing is like nothing to do with you. That's like, you can't control it. And if they end up getting 100 points, you can only control what you can control. So those seasons when we got like high 90s and we didn't win the league, you win the league like 95% of any season in history. Like, you're talking like 2 or 3 times when a team would have beaten you with that total. So I think the players should be looking at that and going, let's get 97 points. Let's really go for that.
I don't think that'll happen.
I don't either. I just think they should be. That's what should be in their head.
Yeah, I'm not saying it won't happen. I am saying it won't happen. I don't think that's going to be a target for them though. They just want to get it won. Yeah. Well, we think differently. They'll want to get it won, and then
you should be thinking about legacy.
I don't know.
I'd be thinking about next year more. I do like the idea of aiming for 97, but if you tell me we can win the league with 91 and not run people into the ground a bit too much for next year, I'm not too bothered about that. Yeah, you look at Arsenal. The reason why Arsenal are having injury problems now is because they played the same lads week after week after week after week for like 2 years or something.
I'm not saying we should do that though.
I know what you're saying, so can we get the best of both worlds? Can we rotate lads in and tick over and get to 97, keep everyone interested, keep everyone with a target in mind? I get what you're saying.
And you're bringing in fresh legs. So even if they may be slightly, there might be a drop-off in quality in terms of what you want from a specific position, you're gaining it with fresh legs and players who are like wanting to... They've not played much and like they're eager, they want to get out there and have like an influence on us winning the title. Because, Endo's Harvey's had like, is he scored in the league? I think his goals
4 goals this year, hasn't he?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
They're all in like Champions League and one in the Cup. So he probably feels like he's not really contributed much to us winning the title. He's come on and he's made a difference in a couple of games, but the likes of Endo and Harvey, they're probably like, they need some and Chiesa. They want some league games so they can feel like they've done something, contributed.
Have you still got to play or start so many games to get a medal? Have you? No,
you haven't got to start.
It's
It's
like appearances.
Yeah, I think it's 5. It's
well,
gone right down. Like
Elliot's played 128 minutes, 11 appearances, 128 minutes. So that's not a lot at all, is it?
So he's going to be getting a Premier League winners medal, and he's probably thinking, I've hardly done anything to even get this. Most of my games have been in the Cups.
The Michael Owen syndrome.
Yeah, at United, yeah.
Gosh. All right, guys. Well, we have gone a little bit over than what the tight hour that we prophesized at the start of
Big
this
shock
podcast.
there.
Yeah, right.
That's your fault, though. You're the host. You're meant to be keeping this in line. It's different when it's me. Everyone says I've got no control of it and that, and that's why they go on for long. But, we're almost on 2 hours here.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. That is my fault. I've just been sat here drinking Modelo Especials for the last hour and 45 minutes, cutting up my little pieces of lime as you guys go on and on. But I'll throw to each of you for some closing comments on today. I'll start with you, John.
Disappointed. Yeah. Bigger picture, just get the league won. I'm glad it's an international break. I'm not going to tune into any football for the next couple of weeks. I don't care who beats who in international footy. Hopefully we come back ready for the Everton game, midweek game at Anfield. Disappointing that we let Newcastle of all teams, as Dave said earlier, win the first trophy for so long. But yeah, bigger fish to fry ultimately, and just get the job done. And in a few weeks, this will be seen as a minor disappointment over the bigger picture and the bigger celebrations.
Stu?
Yeah, I think really disappointing day because we've saved possibly our worst performance of the season for a cup final. I think it would have been difficult to beat them anyway. It would have been a tough game because they're a good side and they played well today. But it would have been nice to have turned up and given them a game and see where we ended up. But on the positive side, I think the manager and the players being terrible today, but they've earned enough credit over the course of the season that we can hopefully still have positive year, and we don't hate them quite as much as we would do if we weren't winning the league.
Go on, Dave, bring us home.
Yeah, I've not really got much to add to either of that. Totally agree with what both of you said. Being 12 points clear does kind of make a lot of things a lot more tolerable than they would be ordinarily. So that's the main thing that we got to look at. I just don't want us to limp to the finish line now. I know we've got a 12-point lead, and in theory, if we were to win the title by 5-6 points, it'd still be great, but it wouldn't feel like it. I want us to end the season strong, because last season we did not end the season strong, and it cost us the title because we were top after 30 games. We got knocked out of Europe. We got knocked out the FA Cup as well by United, which that was where it all snowballed from. But we didn't finish the season strongly, and I'm getting some vibes of that again right now. But thankfully we've got a 12-point lead, so it's different to last year. But I want us to finish strongly. I don't want us to be limping over the finish line. We've only lost one league game all season. Let's keep it that way. No more performances like that today, because it's going to put it's over egging it to say it's going to put a downer on things, because it's not. You're winning the title. It doesn't matter ultimately how you win it. But I'd like it to be a feel good, run-in, where we start putting some performances in, a few easy wins, enjoy the football, just revel in the fact that the title's coming back. I want that rather than us limping to the finish line. So that's all I'm looking for now. Right. And I'm fucking glad we've got the 2.5 week break. I'm going to do my match report. I'm going to do the roundup later in the week, but I'm taking a couple of weeks off from footy because
hardest working man in football.
Yeah, I deserve a break. It's been like a long, say 6 months. It's just twice a week, every week for months and months and months. It's been a
You're
long,
like the Ryan Gravenberch. The Ryan Gravenberch of the
when
group,
you said about when I'm dribbling the ball out to play, and you're like, we all have days when little things are going wrong. I'm thinking that's every day for me. Every time I post a match report up, someone's going, you've got this wrong. What's this? Not just spelling mistakes, but just random fucking facts that I'll say. such and such scored a header from the corner. Like, no, it wasn't him. It was someone else. Like, okay. So yeah, that's just every day.
No one
for
reads
me.
those. No one reads those roundups for factual information.
Yeah,
It's all about the entertainment value.
So yeah, I've got one more match report in me, and I've got one more roundup in me, and then it's a break for a couple of weeks until it's the derby's the next game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's. I think so, and that's the good thing about all this as well, right? Like, there's nothing better than a midweek Merseyside derby. We've got a point to prove in that one. Hopefully, some of the lads are going away on international duty, but they'll come back feeling refreshed. They'll have they've definitely got an axe to grind with Everton over the shenanigans that happened in the derby a few weeks ago. We are indeed cruising to this league title. Hopefully, we can sort of rubber stamp it in the next couple of weeks. Into the month of April, and then enjoy it from here on out. Very disappointing result today. We've complained a lot, but I hope you will, if you listen this long, be mindful of the fact that we did record this an hour after the game, and some of our moans might not stand up over the course of time. Nice one to Dave for coming around to the idea of recording this pod, as we have for every other game for the last 4 years in pretty quick succession after the final whistle. So thanks for listening if you did. Thanks to Stu and John and Dave for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy your break over the international weeks, and then we'll catch you soon.